body to bury him, but so that you see that's war is hell on earth as man makes it.
I know that it's a lot harder to hear them, but they are an older generation with older audio that is not always so easy to understand. But they fought long and hard during World War I for us. And it's amazing what they went through. Now, we've covered World War I, Vietnam, and World War II a little bit. We're now going to cover the next step, and that's Afghanistan. Those of you that currently serve, I would recommend that, maybe you may not want to listen because of the fact that you've been through all of this and may not want to hear it again or know it. This is the Australian side for a reason, because I believe that they deserve our great respect. Their country that for years, actually till this year, I thought was so small, because my grandfather used to say it as the little island that could, is literally about half the size of the United States, if not bigger. They always have opened their doors and their homes, like literally their homes, to American soldiers, and let them stay with their families and fed them off their tables. You don't find that kind of society in many countries. You don't find that decency in many places, and I think that deserves to be cherished and loved and respected back. This is an ally that we need desperately and cannot afford to lose. Here is the Australian side of Afghanistan. After this, we will do another commercial break and run to the second episode, just so you're aware.
And straight away, I was just like, I've missed it, because my job to find it. And then just remember holding on and just looking at dirt before finally the vehicle came to rest on an angle, going across the road. From there, turned around to the lads in the back. Typical, is everyone alright? Yep. They weren't. They were pretty shocked. No one really knew what was going on. One of the lads that was in the previous strike started screaming that his back was killing him. We then called for the medic. The Sarge medic was at the rear hatch at the time, and it was then we realised that he wasn't there anymore.
Just in this trip alone, we've blown up 10 vehicles, and we've only had one serious injury where he's been sent to Germany. I think he's still there at the moment.
Let me pause this for a second. When they're talking about is IEDs. For those of you that don't understand, the vehicle drives over an IED similar to a mine. When it gets over the IED, it blows up under the vehicle and flips it to Kingdom Come, God knows where. I've never experienced this, obviously, so maybe later on Brian or someone can give me more details. I really hate to ask. But I have a close friend by the name of Carrie whose Humvee was hit by an IED. To brace on this subject. It killed everyone but him. He was in a field hospital. No one really communicated because he did not have his dog tags on him at the time. They were doing something classified. They were told that they had to do this without these, of course, identification materials. And they had meanwhile had his funeral, and he came home 6 months later to everyone's surprise, fully alive, but not, the same Carrie. His arm has been partially reattached. He's been, mentally damaged because of the repercussions of what happened. And he's one of the most fantastic veterans I've ever met, fully served his tour and duty, retired and medically retired, I guess you could say, at the same time, because, he's taken care of. And that's what matters, because people like that deserve that. I feel that everyone who serves a tour of duty and gets out hurt because of what they did for me should be taken care of, not only medically, but monetarily. They did what they had to do. They need to be taken care of. Let me get back on this sensitive subject of IEDs, because it's the number one most dangerous thing to Australian troops and our troops as well, also known as an improved explosive device, to tell you what the full detailed name of an IED is. All right, Afghan National Army members and Australian soldiers have massive issues with this, as do U.S. and all allied soldiers. And when you see people that are, EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, that is the people that take care of disposing of IEDs. They are known in some areas as master blasters. They are in my eyes, the gods of bomb disposal. I know a man that did it for 20-some years. I see him, sometimes once a month at work. He is the most calm, collected man you will ever meet. But I think it takes that type of a person to do what these people have to do with these devices. I could not do it. But anyways, let's continue.
He was a rear shooter, so usually a rear shooter will go flying out the back of the car.
And everyone's bailed out of the vehicles and hit the deck as the immediate action, and we had a second round land about 45 metres to our flank, and fortunately all the fragmentation and blast passed above our heads, tore through our car that we were laying under, busted out all the windows and put a few big holes in the car, but no one was injured, so it was a good day.
He's well and truly surrendered, and then he thought, no, I'll give this a go. So he's going down. You could see him thinking that what we couldn't see him, we're only like 3 metres from him, and he's going down and down and down. I'm going, tell him to stop, stop. And sure enough, he picked it up and bang, killed him. And that was probably no further than 3 metres away. That was the closest I've ever shot someone before, yeah.
For most Australian soldiers deployed to Afghanistan, the journey begins here at Al Minhad Air Base on the outskirts of Dubai. At dawn, to avoid the desert heat of the day, all personnel must pass a weapons test to be allowed to move forward into the area of operations. The fundamentals of how to treat battle casualties are drilled into everyone, and all those deploying must pass this simulated exercise in assessing and treating victims of bullet and blast wounds under fire. Tourniquets are applied to severed limbs to prevent mortal blood loss, and all wounds are categorised and dressed with simple battle dressings. Improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, are the most common killer of coalition troops in Afghanistan. All personnel are given last-minute briefings on how to identify and locate IEDs. Soldiers are then made to search for signs of IEDs in a live range. They are looking for anything from a cooking oil container, a loose wire, or a factory-produced mine. In Afghanistan, the ability to see these telltale signs will be essential to prevent death or severe injury to themselves and their comrades. This is how Australian soldiers travel to Afghanistan, inside the cramped and noisy C-130 transport plane, along with supplies and equipment. Many of these soldiers are beginning their 6-month deployments. This regular transport flight is going directly to the Australian base in Tarin Kot, which is the hub of Australian operations in Afghanistan. This base has grown substantially since the Australian Special Forces first deployed here in 2004, followed by the engineers and the infantry the following year. Along with the Australians, the base is now home to troops from the US, Slovakia and Singapore, as well as the Afghans they're training. Back in 2004, conditions and security at what was then a remote outpost were basic.
So you can see that wall, literally 30 metres over to our right there. That was the perimeter.
Okay.
Yeah. So this little Camp Russell, as it is, definitely isn't as big as you can see it now. There was no perimeter that you can see external. Out beyond the wall, there was. That's where it was. That was it. It was on. So every night there'd be pickets manned. Had the gun towers up. Yeah, there were some A&A out on the perimeter, but it was porous. There were no HESCOs up. So Badlands was literally 30 metres that way. So totally different time, and this whole base had a totally different feel to it.
When I first got here, we used to sleep in tents, and the water bottle would be frozen in the winter. You'd wake up and your water bottle you went to bed next to is frozen solid in where you're sleeping, so it is very cold.
Yeah, look, even then, it was TK town definitely wasn't under control. There was a place in TK that we called the Taliban Hotel.
Well, one of my jobs was to drive around as a patrol commander with 2 vehicles, but like these days you couldn't do it. If you drove out the gate in 2 vehicles, no armour, no doors, no roof, no windscreen, you'd be hit. That'd probably take a couple of, maybe 8 hours to get ready, but they'd soon know where you're going and ambush you, and all of you'd be shot to pieces, Like I said, nowadays it's up armoured or nothing.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it. What we've done here has made a difference. There's no doubt about it. The frequency of attacks, the type of attacks have changed. Yes, there is an increase in the employment of IEDs, from, for example, several years ago to now. But hey, Taliban have just transitioned from more conventional type fighting to those sort of operations, employing IEDs, and that's a fact, and that's what they're doing.
The IED is the enemy's preferred weapon of choice. It is an extremely effective weapon that targets us and our allies very, very well. It's very difficult to detect, very difficult to defeat, and it's going to continue to be their #1 weapon of choice for a very long period of time. Essentially, as long as we're here, we'll be attacked with IEDs. Take down a bit of equipment, be able to search, identify, mark, get down a front and paintbrush and uncover it.
Captain Andy Cullen is the commander of the Australian EOD teams that are called in to defuse IEDs and respond to IED attacks.
So essentially what we're trying to identify with the robot is the components of the device.
AOD in Australia is the Australian Ordnance Disposal. EOD is the American counterpart, just for those of you who wondered why I said EOD before. This episode, once again, is going to continue way past 1 hour, just so we're aware, because I'm trying to train civilians, or at least teach civilians, on things that nobody ever talks about. We never talk about the real life that they go through, and so many of you come home and don't want to talk about it, and I can't blame you for that, okay? But the issue I'm having is if we don't talk about it, and no one knows about it, then no one respects it. So, one of the things I'd like to do is those of you that are listening and are willing, that would like to be interviewed, please let me know. Because I would really, really, really love to talk to you. All of you are just so amazing. And it's just too friggin' cool. That's the best way I can say it. The things that y'all have done is just, it really does kill me. So, if you need anything, You know, you can always reach me at 864